Hey, yo, what's happening? It's me coming back at you again with another vid, man. This is getting very interesting by the day, man. A slew of articles are coming out today, particularly on the heavyweight boxing scene. Now, another one came out regarding Alexander Povetkin. Povetkin's coach has came out, and I think he was asked about the Dillian Whyte call out to Alexander Povetkin after Povetkin had knocked out David Price. I know Povetkin's team said they're willing to take. Povetkin said he was willing to fight Dillian Whyte, but his coaches came out and pretty much have dismissed that narrative. He said here that pretty much there's no point of fighting Dillian Whyte at this point. We want Anthony Joshua because my fighter, Alexander Povetkin, is the mandatory. We already fought. Well, this is what he had to say here. Quote, look, Povetkin has already, this is Ivan Kerpa, okay? Kerpa said here, quote, look, Povetkin has already boxed with someone. For some reason, when he wins in a style that conversations begin, he have to have him to fight Takam, Price, and someone else was offered, but not a champion, Kerpa said. He went on to further said here, look, Povetkin is already the mandatory contender for a title. He's given quite a dangerous opponent in the face of David Price. I'm not sure about that. But anyhow, and despite this, Alexander agrees, although many in his situation would prefer him to wait for the title fight. Now, Alexander defeats Price, and then they say that he doesn't want to fight with Joshua, but let's fight again, and this time with Dillian Whyte. So he's referring to, end quote. Now, Kerper's referring to the fact that Eddie Hearn has came out and said that, look, Povetkin is indeed in line to get a fight with his fighter, Anthony Joshua, but he's also willing to throw another heavyweight in the way before that fight, and that's Dillian Whyte. So many people are going to take this and say, hey, why is Eddie Hearn throwing all these other heavyweights in the obstacle and as an obstacle to get to Joshua? Kind of like the similar situation what he's doing with Wilder with Whyte. So that's what people are going to look at this situation from Alexander Povetkin as well. So I don't know, man. This is getting very, very complex. But I will say this, though. I'll take this back. It's not too difficult to read into this. But I will say this, though. I did say initially that this is going to get much, much more difficult for Anthony Joshua if two scenarios. One, he becomes the once again another unified champion when he collects the WBO belt, and two, if Alexander Povetkin does knock out and defeats David Price, which he did, he's a dual mandatory for the WBO and the WBA title. So from my perspective, based off this language right here, but before I get into that, let me further read Kerpa's quotes here. He said, look, I don't see the point of doing a fight at this stage against Dillian Whyte for Alexander's career, although the promoters and Alexander himself will decide this. All right, that's end quote. Now, again, I think that any day now, one of the sanctioning bodies is either the WBA or the WBO will invoke the mandatory invoke the mandated fight between Alexander Povetkin and Anthony Joshua. And we all know that Alexander Povetkin is backed by a very, very powerful, if not the most powerful, boxing promotion in the world, which is the world of boxing, which is headed by Andrei Rabensky, who's a billionaire, by the way. Okay, Ryan Bensky, who's a billionaire. So the Russians, particularly Ryan Bensky, has never lost a purse bid for a fight. And if they can't come to an agreement once the fight has been ordered, if they can't come to an agreement, then the purse bid will be called. They're not losing that purse bid. And Joshua was going to have to go to Russia and defend his titles there. And EJ and I were having a conversation about this along with others in a hangout the other day, is that Joshua, or Hearn by that matter, does not like to do purse bids. And he believes that Joshua will vacate his titles before it comes to that. Now, me personally, I really don't believe that. But I think Joshua has so much pride. I don't think he's willing to give up his titles that easily, unless, obviously Hearn is going to decide that because he is the promoter / manager. But all I got to say is that I really hope, if it does come down to that, I really hope that Anthony Joshua will follow suit to Vladimir Klitschko and Deontay Wilder. Although Povetkin, got busted for PEDs before him and Wilder could fight. just follow in their suit, follow in their shoes, and go ahead and go defend your titles in Russia against Povetkin. Now, however, all this could be situated because, you know, all this could be situated. All this could be resolved here if Anthony Joshua does decide to go ahead and sign on to Deontay Wilder fight, as Deontay Wilder's manager came out and said that, look, my fighter's accepted the terms. He's willing to come to the UK and fight you, Anthony, in the UK, in Wembley. So the ball's in your court. So he can go ahead and he's got options here. He can go ahead and sign on to the unification undisputed bout against Deontay Wilder, or he could go ahead and fulfill his mandatory obligation, although it hasn't been ordered yet. I'm just only speculating right now because based off this language here, I think that mandatory shot is coming. That mandatory stipulation will be ordered any day now by either the WBA or the WBO. So yeah, that's coming. And besides, I think the WBO is going to order it first because there hasn't been a mandatory. Well, actually, no. Joseph Parker actually fulfilled the mandatory obligation. So. But anyways, I believe that one of them is going to order it any day now from this based off this language right here. So we'll see. Again, unifications trump mandatories. Joshua's got a lot of options here, but again, he's facing some difficult choices here, as I've said initially that this was going to happen. Let me know what your thoughts about this, man. Do you guys agree with my assessment? Do you think Joshua should go ahead with the mandatory obligation if ordered? By either the WBA or the WBO, go to Russia to defend his titles, or you think he should go ahead and vacate them? Or do you think he'll be able to get an exemption to fight Wilder in unification bout for the undisputed title if it comes down to that? Let me know what your thoughts about this. I'm out.